Hey everyone, and welcome to my first live tutorial. I'm going to be going kind of quickly, but remember you can always look back at this later, pause it, and practice on your own time. So before we get started, I'm going to go over a few rules that are going to help you as you start to hand letter. So first thing is make sure you have your tools with you. So I like to use the Crayola broadline markers. I have a few with me because markers do dry out. So definitely get a few markers, and then I do have a pencil and an eraser, but I typically don't have to use these. And then also get a stack of paper or a piece of paper and something else to write on. I think it works better than just writing on one sheet of paper on top of a flat surface. It just makes it easier and it makes it more smoother line. So we're going to go over a few rules, and I hope that you guys will be able to follow along with me. So here are some rules. The first thing is we're going to talk about downstrokes. That's a huge part in hand lettering that we will go over today. We're going to talk about connecting letters, and then we're going to talk about having fun. Honestly, hand lettering is all about your own style. Don't compare yourself to other people. And honestly, as you do it more and you practice, your lettering will change and you'll start to develop your own style. And that's what's really important. There are, like I said, a few rules that you should follow, but honestly, it's your own thing. So just do what you can do. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the downstrokes. So if you can, on your paper right now, not in cursive, just write the word home. And I'm going to space it out just a little bit. And you can just write the word home in your regular print. And then I want you to watch as I'm going to make the downstrokes. I'm going to make them thicker. And you can do that by pressing harder with the tip of your pen. So I'm going to start here, and this downstroke is when you're writing the letter, you're bringing your marker down. Those are all called downstrokes. So you start here, I'm going to press a little bit harder, and I'm going to make it darker. And as you can see, I didn't get all the way down to the bottom. That's okay. You can just fill it in like that. Then the next part that you are going to make thicker is going to be your next downstroke. And if you are making the letter H, when you come down, you then come up. So this part right here is not going to be a thicker line because that's an upstroke. The downstroke will start here, and you press harder, and then you make a thick letter. Same thing with your O. It's not going to be a straight stick like the H. You're going to start here, and then you're going to go down and then around. If pressing hard is difficult for you, you can also box in the area that you're supposed to do a downward stroke and then color it in. So for example, on an M, when you're writing your M, this would be a downward stroke. You can just make a little box like that. You can leave your letter like that if you'd like, or then you can just fill it in and you'll get the same effect. This is an upward stroke, and then this is a downward stroke. So if you're just joining us, we're working on filling in our downward strokes. And so this is an upward stroke and then downward, making those thick. And then the same thing with the E. It is a different letter because it's like rounded on the top and then rounded around. What I like to do is I like to start in the middle. I make it a thicker around, and then I kind of taper it off so it kind of blends in. It's not perfect, but like I said, it's hand lettering. It is, what you can make it. It's your own. So that's just kind of an idea of what downstrokes are. And so I'm going to practice it again, and I'm going to use a different word this time. The words that we're going to be using today are home and stay, because we're all staying home. We're starting with the word home because it's a little bit easier than the word stay. So the word stay, you're going to just write it regular. And again, we'll get into the cursive portion. I just want to teach you about downstrokes right now. So I just wrote the word stay. And then on your S, it's going to be a little bit different for the downstroke because it is a curved letter, like I said before. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to press lightly as I go around the letter. And then I think about in my head, okay, right now I'm starting to go down. So I'm going to apply a little bit more pressure. And then I'm going to go around and down and up. Then for here, I'm going to start again. I'm going to go down. And then for your crossbar on your T, you can just leave it, or if you feel like it's a little too light, you can go over it again, but it's not going to be a downstroke. And then for the A, again, I'm going to go around in a light way, and then right here, I'm going to start going down. So I'm going to make that a thicker part, and then this part as well. And then for the Y, this section is down, then this would be light upwards. And then on the outside, this part is a downstroke, and then it goes up. So again, I'm going to taper that off to go up. So you should have the words home and stay. And then that's kind of how you would practice downstrokes. Now, as you get more, as you get used to hand lettering, you can start to do this without having to go back. But honestly, I still like to go back and do it. I feel most comfortable doing that. So like you could write the word home, like deep pressure, light, deep, like hard pressure, around, down. So you could do this in one solid motion, but that is a little bit more tricky. And there's no need to do that if you don't feel like you're confident to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start doing our word home, and we're going to practice writing an H. So if you have lined paper, you can use your lines. If you don't, I like to just make a quick line, so it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but just make a line so you have something to follow. And then before you get started on doing your writing, I want to show you a few different ways you could make your H. I'm going to tell you the two that I typically use, but I want to show you that there are other ways to do this than just the way that I do. So you could do a typical H like that. You could do one that's a loop and around. You could start at the bottom and go around. And like I said, I'll slow down and teach you. I just want to show you a few different ways. This one's a little bit more fancy. Something like that. I kind of already did that. So the two H's, I don't know what happened right there, but the two H's that I typically use most often are going to be this one and this one. I think they just look the best with the rest of my hand lettering, but I encourage you to practice with all of them. So now that you have your straight line, we're going to practice making an H in cursive. So I'm going to use this H right here to practice. And to make, the first thing you're going to do is make your loop. And so when I'm thinking of my line here, I'm thinking of it like you think about in, kindergarten. You have your paper that has your baseline and then your midline here. I'm going to start my loop kind of at the midline and go up and then down. So if you could practice that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, typically if I'm writing like regular, not hand lettering, I would just come down and then straight back up. But for this one, to make it a little bit more fancy, I'm going to come off the inside corner of this. I'm going to go up, down below the baseline, and then back up. So I think you could practice a few of those around, up. This tail part on the end is important for when we later on talk about connecting letters. So you're going to go around, down, up, around, down, up. So once you have a few of those, we're going to go back now and we are going to put in our downstrokes. So remember, if you are confused as to where you're going to do that, just follow along with your marker. And then when you start to see your hand go down, that's where your downstroke is going to start. So you think you're going to go around, and then right about here is where I'm going to start going down. So I put my marker down and I push a little bit harder to make a thick line. And then this upward part, I'm going to leave alone. And then this inward part here, I'm going to go down, and then that stays. Same thing over here, around. This is the downward stroke, and then over here is the downward stroke. Over here is the downward stroke, and over here. So actually these last two, I've kind of put the thick bar on the inside, and for this one, I'm going to put it on the outside. It doesn't really matter. I just like to look at the spacing of my letter to see which part can have the fatter section, if that makes sense. And then also I noticed on this, my little tail, which I like to have on them, is gone, so I'll just draw it back in. And then here, we'll do this, around, down, and then up. All right, so now that you have your H's, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna practice O's. Now remember, if yours are not perfect, that is okay. You can always go back and practice these. I just wanna try to go quickly enough to get through writing a word. So now I'm gonna draw another line. And if you need to draw in your center line, you can do that, but don't feel that you have to. And we're just gonna make O's. And so when you make an O, I like to start in the middle, a little bit above the middle. I go around, and then when I come up towards the top, I like to go out beyond this line and swing back around. So I start up here, I come down, up on the outside, back around. So you can practice these. If you are really trying to do calligraphy in a way that you don't have to go back and you just apply the pressure right away, you would start here, and right away it's a downward stroke. So you're going to have a thick line, and then as it starts to go up, you release your pressure, you go around, and then it starts to get thick again because you are going down. So now that you've done a few of those, you can go back if you haven't already, and you can start your downward strokes of making them thicker. So with the O, I think what's important is that you notice that this part is down, but then it does start to go upward. And so after you make this section, your downward stroke thicker, and you go around to do this one, you're going to want to make sure that you taper it off and make it kind of angled so that it's not thick all the way through. And what I like to aim for is this corner point right here. That's where I want it to be the thinnest because it's going to blend right in. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to get closer and closer and closer to that line and fill it in. So it looks like that. So we go down, around, and I already did those ones. But as you can see, like sometimes they're not perfect, and that's okay. So you can go back and you can go with your marker and just fill it in like that. So then next we're going to make an M, and again I'm going to make my line. And you don't always have to have lines. I just encourage you to so you can kind of see where the placement of your letters are. But now that I'm used to doing it, I don't make lines. I'm just doing it to help you. So with M's, you can do them, again, in a variety of ways. I really like to just kind of think about the project or word that I'm writing, and then that kind of determines the type of M that I'm going to make. So for example, you can make an M that has their first hump high and then the second one low. You could do one where it has the first lump low and then the second one high. It doesn't really matter. Again, it's your own lettering, but I do typically, I think, do it that way with a little tail on the end. So again, go back through and fill in your downward strokes. Like that. And you don't have to have the little tail on the end. If you wanted to, you could just make it like that. This is all your own personal style. No one's handwriting is going to look the same as someone else's, so that is okay. All right, so I'm already out of paper on that one, so I'm gonna move to, I guess I'll keep that if you guys are still looking. I'm gonna move on to a new sheet of paper, and I'm actually gonna get a new marker too because that one is kind of dying. All right, our next letter is going to be an E. So again, I'm going to make my line. And then for an E, it's just like a traditional E, maybe just a little bit more rounded. So you can just make an E, an E. I actually like to have a little tail on the end like that. You don't have to have that. I'm going to do a thick downstroke like that. And see, I'm still working on that part too. So just fill it in. And then downward stroke. If you do not have, I guess I haven't mentioned this, if you do not have a thick marker, it might be difficult to do downward strokes, and that's okay. You can just right now go through and put in your lines, you're filling like your boxes, and later on go back and color them. That way you know where your downward strokes are supposed to be. And you can color them in. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to start with rule number 2, connecting our letters. So obviously, if you are hand lettering, you're writing something in cursive and you are most likely writing a word. So you're going to want to connect it together. So again, I would suggest making your line, or if you have lined paper, you can follow a line on there. And we're going to write the word home. And if you remember, you can look back at our letters. I chose to do an H like this. So I'm going to start my loop at that midline. I'm going to go above and then down. And then the second part, I'm going to make sure I go below the baseline. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to go around. I pause and pick up my pen. And I think that is a rule that I probably should have added, but picking up your pen. Most cursive is fluid and you're going, but hand lettering is not. You have to have a lot of pauses and you have to think about what you're going to do next. So now that I've made my first loop, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go up, down, and up. Then I'm going to start my O. And now I have to think about where I'm going to place my O because it needs to touch or be connected to this H. So I know that my O, going back to my paper here, I know that my O is going to go a little bit above the midline. That's kind of where I like to make them. Again, you can start lower. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to think about, okay, if this is at my midline, I'm going to try to make my O start where that is. So I'm going to start here, and I know if I go down, I'm going to come close to that connecting part. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to go around, I'm going to go up and out. And remember, you want to make sure you have this tail because if you don't, your letter's not going to connect. So you're going to have it come out. And then to make your M, I'm going to start it here so it overlaps that right away. I'm going to go up, down, and then I'm going to make it a little bit shorter and go below the baseline and up. So if you can see, these are kind of the same. Here. I have people. Okay. Then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go around, down, like that. And so I have the word home. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my downward strokes in. My husband is texting me and telling me my video has ended. If you are here, let me know. So we're going to go around and then down, down here, down here, and around. So now I've written the word home. Next, I'm going to try to write it without the line. Did my video end?
It says pause.
Oh, well, people are still joining. Sorry. Technical difficulties.
I got text messages that says that they got kicked out too.
Well, people are joining. If you're here, say hi. All right. So we have the word home, and then I'm going to try to write it now without my line in it. If you're still okay, I'm back. Apparently my video stopped. I'm sorry, guys. So I will not start all over, but I will start here. Apparently you missed the connecting of the letters. So I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to show you again. So you're going to start. Thanks, people, for coming back. I'm sorry. Apparently I thought the video was still going, but it stopped. So I'm going to connect the letters. If you saw this, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to do it again. So if you are thinking about your writing your word, you are going to have your line here, and then I'm going to think about my midline. So if we go back to this, we have our midline here. I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to make my H around, and then I think it's important to pick up your pen. So pause, and then go again, down and up. Make sure that when you come up or you end your letter, you're ending it in a place where you know you can start your next letter. So don't end it down here, because your O is not going to start down here. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to start my O at the midline, around. I'm going to start here, down, up. See, I'm picking up my pen each time. I'm going to end up there. And if you've noticed, when I go below the line, I'm trying to keep these somewhat consistent. It's not perfect, but somewhat consistent. And then I'm trying to keep my letters here consistent. And these are my taller letters, so it's okay. And then for this part, I'm going to make an E, around, and stop. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to fill in my downward strokes. And again, if you're thinking that yours is not smooth, that's okay. I have done this lots of times and have a lot of practice. And so I just encourage you to watch these videos and to practice. So we have this, and then we have the word home. And so if you wanted to add some more onto this, you could write the word home, and then you could write the word stay right on the top, so people could stay home. Or I can also teach you how to write the word stay. I think I will do it quickly right now, and then maybe in a couple days I will come back and do it slowly, but I want to give you something to practice if you wanted to. So here we go. I'm going to write the word stay. So again, with the letter S, there are many different ways you can write the letter S, and I'm just going to show you how I'm going to write it. And then if you have individual questions, please feel free to message me. I'd love to help you. This is really fun for me. So again, that letter S could go here like that. Oh, if you wanted to have your line, you can have your line. I'm sorry. You can make an S that kind of goes around like that. You can make an S like that. Again, this little tail on the end is to connect your other letters to. I like to do S's like this. So you can choose the style of S that you like. And then I would just practice. So S. This is an easy one, or a easier letter to practice putting the pressure down on your downward stroke right away. So let up, light, deep pressure, up, down, up. Okay. Then for the letter T, I guess I'm going right into it. I said I would go do this another time, but I'm just going right in. So for the letter T, I like to always make my T's go below the line. It's just a style that I've picked up, but you can certainly do your T's like that, but I like to always make mine go lower. Like this. This is another letter that you could try the deep pressure and the downward stroke, and then light pressure on the way up. Like this. And then you can kind of pick the style of cross that you want. A lot of times I think about the word that I'm writing and the space that needs to be filled in. So like you could just do a traditional like that. You could do a wavy one like that. You could maybe get fancy, do something like that. Again, whatever you want to do, you could do that like that. Then your next letter is an A. I'm sorry that this isn't like, I don't know, I can't get any feedback, so I'm not sure if I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow, but again, you can practice this on your own. For the letter A, typically you think of when you're writing an A, being an elementary school teacher, you tell them to write the C, magic C, and then a line. But in hand lettering, I like to kind of make my A's an angle. So I'm going to start it like I would start a C, go around, but then at this bottom point right here, I like to come up. And then I would just do my tail like that. Yay, Molly, you're keeping up. I love it. So then we start here, like we're making the letter C, and then we go up, and then down. Again, you do not have to go below the baseline. And my OT at work right now is calling me or saying, great magic C. She would be proud. So you are making a C kind of like that, and then down. So practice those. And then once you've done a few, go back and put in your downward strokes. So they would be here. Make sure you leave that top and that curved portion thin. That's really going to show the downward strokes. Like this. And then, I know I'm going fast, but all right, so that's what we have. Oh, and then see, go back and color those in. And then the last letter we're going to do is the Y. And this is where it's going to get the most individualized, I think. As the more you practice, you're going to figure out ways to make the Y. But it does start, you go down and then kind of a curved up like that. So I would just practice doing that and spacing them out. Like this. So maybe do 4 of them. And then you're going to go back and add your tails in. And so I'm not sure if a tail is the right term, but that's what I'm calling it. So I'm going to start at the top, and then you can do different styles of tails. So I'm going to show you 4 different styles of tails. You can come straight down and just go around. You could come down, around, and like back down. You could maybe get a little bit fancy and make like a curve letter. And then you could also always do something like curved, and you could come back around. Honestly, it's whatever you want to do. And a lot of this is what fits into the space or the word that you're wanting to write. So if the Y is in the middle of your word, you're probably not going to do something like this. This is the Y that I typically write, but there are people that do these all the time. But as far as the downward strokes on Ys, it's going to be this first part. And Molly, you like the last Y. Well, you can do that because your last letter in your first name is a Y, so that would be perfect. And then for the downward stroke on this, I like to leave this in this little triangle part here. I like to leave that alone. So when you're putting that downward stroke, that pressure, try to put it on the outside so that you can still create that triangle, and then go down. And then again, this is going to be a letter you're going to have to taper off, so thin out as you go up. I am honestly still working on Ys and making this look great. Okay, yay. I see someone else that likes the last Y. Well, this is the one I normally do. So, The tutorial, I'm going to be doing this one, but you are welcome to practice this. This is your own writing. So we have a Y like this, and then down, and then it goes up. And then for this one, it actually goes down again. So I make it thick again, and then back up. This one, if you ever are confused about where you're putting those downstrokes in, again, just go over again with your marker, like kind of air right. So you make it, I'm going to go down here, so I'm going to make this down, and I'm going to go up. So I don't need to put more pressure there. Then I'm going to go down, and then it goes back up, and then it goes down again, back up, down and up. And I see that Manella said I make it look so easy. I do this. I make money doing this, so I'm glad that it looks easy, but I practice so much. I'm not even kidding, guys. I practice all of this, look, making different things all before this. So I practice. So we have a downward stroke here. And then for those of you that like this one, you're going to do it deep pressure here. And then as you go around, this one doesn't really come back down. So you could just go back up. You could even add like a little, I don't know, you could add something to it if you wanted to. But those are the different Ys that you could do. So now I'm going to practice writing the word stay, and I'm going to use a different marker. So I'm going to make my line, and I'm going to write stay. And just refer back to what you were doing. So remember, your S is going to pretty much stay on that baseline. You can drop it below, so if you wanted to, you could do something that kind of goes a little bit lower. But knowing that my next letter is a T, and that is going to drop below, I like to show variation in my lettering. So I'm going to keep this one right at the base. So going to write my S, and remember, I'm going to have to connect this. So I want to make sure that that tail at the end comes out enough so that I can connect it. So I'm going to want to go up, around, like that. Then my next letter is going to be a T. So I'm going to look back at my writing, and it goes below the line. That's how I'm going to want to do it for this word. Again, you can always do it like this, but if you like to have the bouncy effect of your lettering, you're going to want to make it go down. So I'm going to go start up tall, and then I'm going to go down below and come up enough to make that tail. And remember, the further apart, like if this spacing here is wider, your next letter is going to be spaced out a little bit further. So you're going to want to make it closer here. So you're going to go up there. And then for my A, I want my A to stay kind of high. So that's why I extended this all the way up here. You can make yours down here if you want it all to be on this same line. But I'm going to make mine like this. So I'm not even going to go touch the line. And then I'm going to make that like that. I'm being really descriptive and calling things that. But the tail part of the letter, I'm going to have touched the line. And then for my Y, I'm going to start it here. I'm going to go up. And I actually extended this part of the Y higher than this, just a style. And then I'm going to think about the tail of my word, or my Y right now. I know that I'm going to want my Y to be this Y. Again, if you chose this one, it's going to look a little different, but I want my Y to be this one. So I know that this space right here, I need to fill. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go down, around, and up. And as far as how far I need to go down, in my head the whole time, I'm thinking about my loop and how high it's going to go. So if I stopped here, my loop wouldn't be very large. So I'm just thinking about it, going around. So I'm always a step ahead, up, and then I kind of flare it out to the side. So then I do not cross my T right now. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my downward strokes like this. Again, tapering it off. and then around. So I guess if you, and then you can do your T. But I guess if you were doing the other type of Y and you wanted it, so you could do something like that. If you guys liked that one. So, something like that. All right. Someone said they're so impressed I'm doing this in Crayola marker. Yes, I love Crayola markers. I probably could be their spokesperson. So now what I'm going to do, and this is a bit advanced, my next part, but I want you to be able to practice something. So I'm just going to show you, and then you can take this next week or so. I mean, we're in quarantine, so you can do whatever. Whatever you want during that time, but maybe this will help you stay off Netflix. I'm going to combine the words. And for this, I am not going to draw straight lines, but, well, I guess I will for the tutorial, but I'm going to draw in pencil, okay? That way I can go back and erase it. I typically don't have to write lines because I've done this for a while, but drawing that line in pencil is going to allow you to erase it, but still be able to go over with a marker. So I'm going to go quickly. But like I said, you can go back and practice. So I'm going to write the word stay. Remember, we're writing stay home. So I'm going to write stay. Like that. And then I'm going to go through right now and just do my downward strokes. And if you see right here, my spacing, there's like a weird little line. So I'm going to make my downward stroke come on the outside and cover that up. And kind of just blend it together. And then I kind of want this to be a little taller. So I'm going to go back and just do it like that. I'm going to go up and around and up. And then I'm going to add in, I chose to do a tail like this because there's a lot of space up here and I wanted to maybe fill that in. If you are doing the Y that goes around, you might not need a tail that goes so long like this. Or, I mean, maybe you could even, I haven't practiced this, I don't know. You could do something like that, something, I don't know. But then we have stay, and then I'm going to connect the word home right inside of this space. So I know that in the word home, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have a tall letter, and then I'm going to have some shorter letters. So I see the space that I have here is going to be a perfect spot to make my H. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm actually going to make a different type of H, I think, than we practiced, but like I said, that's okay. And I'm going to fill in that space there to make my H. And then I see that I'm going to make an O, and then I have to make an M that somehow goes below this Y. So I'm thinking about that already before I go into the next letter. So I'm going to start here, make my O, and I kind of made that go up because there's space there that I want to fill. Then for this, I'm going to, remember how I said, I have to find my papers, I've got like 8 of them. The M's, you could make different ways. You could make the first hump higher or the second one or make them the same. For my space, since I see here that I have more space in the first part and less space in the second part, I'm going to make my first hump taller and my second hump lower. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go up, down, and up. And then I'm going to fill in my E like that. Then I'm going to go back, fill this in. I guess I forgot to put in my baseline to help you guys. I'm so sorry. Down like this and around. And then we have the word stay home. And when I'm looking at this, I don't like how this is thinner than the rest. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to go over it with my marker. like that. And then if you want to, you can add in little details like this. There you go. So I really encourage you guys to practice. You can write anything that you want. I'm happy to help you, but if you are practicing, remember that it is going to be your own handwriting. Nothing is ever going to be the same from person to person. Even my writing of this looks different. Like I said, I wrote it a few different ways. Like earlier, I wrote it like that. You can write it like that. This one I did. For this one, I just boxed it in instead of putting the downward strokes. So you can change it up, do what you want. It's your own, but I really encourage you to practice during this time. And I would love if you were to tag us in your post and show people everything that you're doing. If you guys really liked this, I'd be happy to do it again next week. But thanks so much for joining. Bye.